Okay, everybody. So here's the deal. In honor of Charlie Kirk and the horrific, tragic thing that happened to him and his family, um, I wanted to go ahead and find a way to communicate. And my dogs are now they're wanting food, even though they just got a bunch of treats. But communicate basically my thoughts about the situation, and also give people an opportunity to kind of share their thoughts through the channel. Um, this was not my original idea. I was talking with a buddy who's a Mason, and he's one of those like buttoned up tie and everything's perfect. And I look like I look like a shit show. But my point is, my buddy said to me, he's like, you know what you should do? You should go ahead and make what he made important to you and important to everybody that you can reach out to. And I was like, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? He was for a lot of things. He said, well, the debates, that was his thing. He would debate people. And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, you should do that. I was like, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a very spicy, risky idea. But then he said to me, well, and it kind of like angered me. And then I got through it and I realized it was my ego. But he said he thought more of me. And at first I, went through like the emotional, screw you, what do you know? And then I realized he was right. I realized that it was accurate. I realized that was correct. That he's right. And so what he was saying was that I come from the field of people, lawyers, right? Lawyers that are all about, two people, word to word, duking it out through ideas, sharing ideas, building on ideas, having counter arguments, all that stuff. And when I look at Charlie Kirk, I have a special connection with him that most of the people I see, talking about it that are not YouTubers or Facebookers or X, whatever. I'm a YouTuber like him. And one of the things that around 2 weeks ago, it took me 2 trips. Before any of this happened, I went and donated all of my big fold out tables and the middle sized ones too, because I knew I was never going to be able to do what I did in the past, which was go work with the homeless out by the woods, where basically pastors would feed them and I'd help them and I'd help them get their paperwork done and all that stuff. I knew that I couldn't do that anymore because it was no longer safe for me to actually go into those situations. Not that the homeless were really going to do anything. It was that I get, unfortunately, death threats all the time because of YouTube. And so as a result of that, you kind of get jaded to it. But I knew I needed to start figuring out how to at least protect myself a little bit. So what I do is I work with the homeless on Wednesdays at the homeless center, which is a controlled environment of how they can get to me, who's checked out, they go through reception, stuff like that, as opposed to me just being out there on the side of the street where the homeless are just walking up and anybody can interact. So what I've realized, about this situation is that, Charlie Kirk was, some of you love him for his ideas, some of you hate him. But to me, there was a connection because he was a massive influencer. And as a massive influencer, he was able to get his ideas across. And to be fair, he would usually have a winning hand in the argument, which is odd because he was a man without a college education, competing with kids that were getting a college education. And, he just loved to learn. And he would learn through history how to basically present his arguments. And what I consistently noticed from watching his videos was that the people he would go up against were usually emotional, were usually not educated in history, but almost always not educated in the purpose of why our Constitution is the way it is. Now, for me, I didn't think it was that bad with how people hated our Constitution and hated the direction of things. And what I've learned is that at this point, from the people that go after him, and I've had friends literally because I said I was going to do this video that are no longer my friends. They saw it, they texted me, they're like, how dare you say honor him? How dare you do this? How dare you do that? And my response to that is those people are not influencers. They're not YouTubers. They don't know. They don't get it. They don't even make an attempt to understand it. And that's sad. But that's their choice. And, they can go have their pity party wherever, whatever. You know what I mean? That's them. So, from my perspective, what I've learned about a lot of this stuff and what I've seen, and people ask me, like, who are you the most afraid of? Right? Who are you the most afraid of when something bad could happen to me? I am the most afraid of mentally unsound people on the left political spectrum side. Why? That is because I represent them. And what happens is there's a system in place where when somebody goes homeless, that can't get a job, can't keep a job, and they're younger, sometimes they get redirected and end up in a group, a club that uses them for these, political ventures. And I've seen that for people, and the thing is, they rinse, repeat the same phrasing and the same terminology over and over and over again because they brainwash them. And what's sad about it is that what you're seeing are these young individuals not being the person they could be, should be, etc., but they're the output of a machine that collects them when they become homeless. And I think the big thing that you've got to understand from my perspective on this is that I don't know where the Democratic Party is at this point. I know a lot of old Democrats that aren't Democrats anymore. They just don't realize it. And I know a lot of young Democrats who are trying to catch up with how far left it's gone. And so from my perspective, don't get me wrong. I'll tell you some things that are going to shock your brain. Okay. I think vegan food is amazing because honestly, I have digestive issues and you just digest it super easily. And also it's another take. It's something different, right? Way back in the day, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I did begin the process of it, GET, because I wanted to have for each group their own television setup so that they could have, there was Black Entertainment Television, BET. I wanted to have one where basically they would do programming for each different group. So GET was going to be Gay Entertainment Television. And that was going to have shows on there that, LGBTQ plus community could watch and enjoy. And it would be its own media thing that would carve out their spot for them, right? So the thing was, I've consistently throughout my life tried to go ahead and be supportive of lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds. I grew up on a farm. I know tractors. I'd rather spend money on a truck than a fancy car. That's the way it is. Do I feel bad for a lot of people? Yeah, I'm a bleeding heart. I've always been that way. That's why I do these videos, to help you guys keep your benefits, help you guys get benefits, etc. But when it comes to Charlie, some of you guys love him, some of you hate him. But what you have to kind of realize is that it wasn't Charlie that you loved or hated. It was essentially the ideas and the simple ways he was able to explain them and cater them to the conversation that was being had. And it was those ideas that made him immeasurable. It made him immoral. He's immoral. Not immoral. What is the immortal? Immortal. And so, the basic thing is definitely not moral. He's stuck with his morals beyond anything. He was immortal. And so as a result of that, the question that comes to my mind is, and I get people that get angry because I'm doing this video, and it is what it is. I guess the big thing that I think we have to understand is that there is an entire small little mini army of people on the left that, they've got depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, they got bipolar, multiple personality disorder, lots of stuff. And because of the climate of how capitalism works and their inability to go ahead and fit within those low-level jobs that would give them the money to be able to have a place to live, they end up on the streets. Now, this was not the type of person that ultimately fired the gun that took his life. But as evidence comes out, I can pretty much guarantee you there's going to be a plethora of items that explain why this kid had been brainwashed by an agenda usually proffered by academia or specialty groups that his friends were part of. And I'm going to be honest with you, when it comes to essentially the whole idea of woke specifically targets young females. Specifically targets young females. When it comes to essentially woke being something that young women versus older women look at, young women look at it as a way to validate this victim priority problem that they have inside them. And then for older women, wokeness, this whole DEI agenda is heavily pushed because when it comes to hiring practices, females, whether they're white or not, get massively more hires because of DEI. And a lot of people think it's, they're going to hire more, African Americans, Latinos, Asians or this or that. No, the greatest numerical advantage brought forward in a vocational environment for people who use woke DEI to get jobs are white females that are older. That's the way it works. And so what's weird about it is that at the end of the day, I think the big problem we have here is that America has reached a point where, and I guess people are saying turning point because of worry, but I'm not saying that as like a model of system. What I'm saying here is America's reached a point where pretty much everybody's poor. There's some rich people, but there's not a lot of them, And so the boomers still have their houses for the most part, even though some of them are losing them. And that's like their money, you know what I mean? But everybody on a monthly basis is pretty much poor. We don't have a lot of savings accounts. And I think to be fair with that situation, when everybody's poor, the whole racial thing doesn't make sense anymore. Because remember, when you had a bunch of rich white people or well-to-do white people, other groups could say, hey, I'm not that because I don't have that skin color. I'm not that because I don't live in those same areas. But now everybody's poor and everybody lives everywhere. Now you could say, hey, look, this group has this culture, this group has that culture. You can argue it, and it certainly has its place. But at the end of the day, everybody's poor. So even I don't have good money like that. My student loans are $300,000 in debt. I got my mortgage on my one house that I live in. The rental home has its own mortgage. I'm not financially, if you're ever thinking that I have some magical stock bonds portfolio thing, I don't. Most of that stuff I don't have a 401k. I don't have an IRA. I don't have a bond to my name. I don't have any of that stuff. Every generation, it's poor. Everybody's poor now. So the problem is we got one group that just wants the money-making machine to work, capitalism. They want it to not suck. Then we got one group who basically their currency is victimhood. They got this problem, long COVID problem, and the jobs won't accept them, and It's two different identities. Work hard, make money. But the money's got to be worth it, which it's not anymore. This group, emotion, prioritizing what they don't have and how it's somebody else's fault. I guess the big thing for me is I felt myself moving more and more away from whatever the new Democratic Party is. Like if you're over 60 and you're a Democrat, you and I are probably pretty aligned. We're probably pretty much on the same ideas, right? The focus is homeless, poor, low income, veterans. How do we get them to have a better life so that America sucks less for them? Like that's where I come from. I'm in Social Security, so obviously there's that direction. So now you look at the new version, right, of the left. And to me, it's a little wonky. It doesn't work. You got LGBTQ plus parades being overtaken by Gaza Strip pro-Palestine, organizers, so that they have to cancel the entire parade. You have basically the teachings of violence against people who, I mean, this is the weirdest thing. Remember when I made that Martin Luther King video and I was explaining to you guys the different sections that I liked about his writings and what was so special and how legally people missed something from his most famous speech and they all focused on this thing, but that thing wasn't as important as this other thing. I had people on the far left tell me that I was not allowed to quote Martin Luther King because that was an appropriation. I think at this point now, to be fair, I feel like the left is so extreme left in whatever it is that Martin Luther King would not even be acceptable to them. I feel like they would spit in the face of him if he was out there marching. And so for me, I definitely feel myself slowly having to erode away from whatever we call a Democrat nowadays. I just don't know what it is, and everybody I talk to has a different idea of what it's supposed to be. Like the MAGA people, I know exactly what they want. The Republican and name only people, I know exactly what they want. But this is too fluid and all over the place. I don't know what they want. If they're all over the place and they're all conflicting, it's tough for me to understand what their directional point of view is. And so when I sit here tonight and I do this communication with you, and real quick, Star Fury, good. Let me do a big heart here. Let me do a big heart. We need love. God bless you, Walter. Continue to speak the truth. We need it now more than ever. Love conquers all. Thank you. And that is the main thing. A lot of you guys, if you're wondering what is going to be the thing that fixes a lot of this problem, it is the general caring for others. So let me explain what I mean by that. If a group feels like they're being left out, that group has to work harder to help those who have the advantage to then take the advantage and have the advantage in society in the way that they want to. And that's the best way to do it. Everybody's helping everybody do better. It's like a tornado of achieving greatness for everybody. They're just all getting sucked and thrown up into the air, having a higher standard of living, although a tornado sounds scary. But it's a constant climbing the corporate ladder. And one of the things that I don't see happening now is basically like take for me, for example, right? I had to hide any and all Jewish existence or background growing up. Had to hide it. Lived in a farm area, went to schools that were very, very Christian, had to hide it. You can't talk about that stuff. You can't incorporate it. And so what I've realized now is that in order for somebody to be accepted, they have to take the effort, make the effort. You know who taught me this was a trans person when I was working at Starbucks. But you have to make the effort to help people that are not like you. Because that's the only way to spread that trust. It's like two animals out there, right? Two animals looking at each other. Can I trust you? Can I not trust you? And then one of them, the dog, does that like maneuver, right? And then the other animal's like, oh, he just wants to play. He just wants to play. So the thing that I'm getting at with all this is that I'm going to go ahead and do what I've never done before with all of you guys, which is I'm going to go ahead and debate you. I do this because my Masonic buddy made me feel like shit today. And also, too, I honor Charlie Kirk and all the accomplishments he has done. Some of the stuff he said, I fully support. Some of it, I'm a little like, whoa. But the bottom line is he did what most can't. He would take complex ideas and simplify them down and be able to deliver them to everybody. That's Einstein stuff. And, the thing is, like, I know people, some of them see this, some of them don't, but Charlie Kirk was like, it's like an Abraham Lincoln. He was like his own, he was like, Malcolm X. He was his own version of that, And what's, and some people are like, so how could you? How dare you? No, that's what he was. He was a guy who could basically give ideas and we would understand it. And he was fighting for something. Everybody knows he was fighting for something. Everybody knows that. And what to me is so sad about this situation at the end of it is what ultimately caused his death was a lack of funding for better security measures. There should have been drones up in the air. He should have been able to access, especially with his connection to Trump, some sort of, a scope and a snipe. It's a two-team thing. That's a two-person team. And he couldn't because he didn't make enough money to have that and the other team of people. And so what I see with this is that when we have people that are philosophers, he's a philosopher. That's what he was. When I see people with that, but they don't have the money to do their thing, that is a sign of the times. His death exists because in this year, in this month, on that day, America was unfortunately a very, very uneducated place. Because if that kid, the one who pulled the trigger, had properly been educated on how to express himself through his words, he would not have felt the need to do what he did. We took the Constitution out of the classrooms, and it has not been a good thing. So as somebody who is a fellow YouTuber, obviously on a much smaller level than he is, and he was, seeing the amount of death threats I get, I can only imagine what he had to face. And it's sad because it's usually from the same types of people. And they scream at you and they do this and they make all these threats and how dare you and how could you and yada, yada, yada. And it's disgusting. It's just like, why? Do I think it's going to get better? No, it's not going to get better. I think that these impairments, these mental impairments, we've spent more than decades, we've spent hundreds of years not being able to cure people with mental impairments. In fact, it is so common and commonly accepted as a thought that when you have a mental impairment, that there's really no way out of it. In fact, when I made that video showing that, psychiatrists, psychologists, behavioralists could not and would not be able to cure people with mental impairments, right? A lot of people were like, of course they can't. It's disgusting of you to even consider that they would go ahead and be able to cure somebody with a mental impairment. How could you even say that? And what's weird about it is that's all training from pharmaceutical companies. They've essentially trained the population to be a pill mill society of users. There is no solution. There is no fix. There's only continuous repetitive treatment. Imagine if you were a young person and you were constantly fed hatred and victimized attitude adjustments. You were getting enraged and you didn't know what to do with it. You're getting angry and didn't know where to go with it. I think what's happened is America changed really quickly. It went from a nation of essentially people who had a system of relationships, getting married, having kids, going to war for your country. Obviously, somebody with lots of multicolored hair on the super far left is never going to go ahead and sign up for the military to fight for their country. This is because they don't connect themselves to the entity of the thing that allows them to exist on a platform. What do I mean? Geographically, they don't connect themselves to America. They can't connect themselves to anything because they're worried about themselves in that little tiny moment. And in that little tiny moment, they're always put upon the victim, etc. And it's tough for them because in their head, they can't be happy. That's one of the things I was talking with some Republicans about this, and Republicans are like, I don't understand why they don't understand. And that's because your brain is doing analysis with different building blocks, a different set of mathematics. Your logical 1, 2, 3, 4 is not the same logic that they use when they calculate it. And that's tough for a lot of people to understand because everybody sees it through their lens, and their lens is, a person with an IQ of 100 is going to expect somebody else to see things in the same order that they see it. Somebody with 140 IQ, usually at that point, they realize everybody's on a different level. Not everybody's meant to go to college, yada, 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 right? Okay. A higher level of intelligence, they're seeing some stuff here, they're seeing some stuff there. But at the end of the day, what I've really realized is that America on the left is not moving towards more people working together, getting together, being good, building themselves up, increasing their standard of living. No, it's a race to the bottom. And that's just another way, like literally, like what is victimized framing of mind? What is being a victim? It's just a race to the bottom, right? Because if you're the victim and you're the number one victim of everything, you have to race literally to the bottom of the corporate rungs, the bottom of the ladder, just to essentially find your ultimate pity square that you sit in, hoping that people will give you something. I mean, you ever think about that? Victimhood is essentially like a homeless person begging for coins on a street corner. Would you be so kind to help somebody who's suffering? Would you be so kind to help somebody who's homeless? Would you be so kind to help me because I don't have something, because I'm this religion, or I'm this color, or I'm this person, or whatever? It's weird to me. Why would you do that to yourself? Why don't you try to build up who you are, who your people are, etc.? And I get it's tough. Whoever is the majority group, advantage. They always have the advantage, right? They always do. But at the same time, America is a really unique melting pot, salad pot, whatever you want to call it. It's a thing. I think we're on the right track. But this was a huge setback, because what it showed America was that doing this, talking for one group, for one person, is not enough. There's got to be screaming and yelling and fire and damage and all that stuff. There's got to be this whole big thing. And don't get me wrong, the Republicans do similar things to this, but they use war and they do it in another country outside of the US. It's just a more organized version of that. I think at this point, the safety of people is a real risk. And that is because you have new types of kamikazes. People who are so deranged, unhappy, that they're willing to give it all up because there's no solution. And the weird thing for me is, like, a disability attorney who actually works with people who are in that position. You know what I mean? Like, they're quadriplegics. They have to use a chair with a thing in their mouth, and they, you know what I mean? They drive it, they do this, da, 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 da. You know what I mean? People that are like, yeah, I'll try Elon's brain implant because what other option is there? People in that situation. That's a victim to me of a lot of factors. But I have disabled people working with me that have those kinds of issues. And they're incredible people. They're all these just incredible human beings that want to achieve, that want to do more for themselves, that want to do, and it's just, I don't get it. I don't, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe people don't really realize what's really bad. One of the things that, and this is my final thought, and then we're going to go into essentially doing the debate. One of the things that is shocking to me is that when somebody tells me, I am disabled, de facto disabled. How could they not find me disabled? And then I explained to him, all right, so the judge is going to see 5 claimants for hearings, 5 hearings on that day. One day, 5 hearings. One of them is going to be a quadriplegic. Now remember, this judge is only going to approve on that one day 2 of the 5 claims. And then on the next day, he'll do 3 of the 5 claims. The next day, she'll do 2 of the 5 claims. You get it. It's either 2 or 3 claims approved of the 5. Okay. All right. First person that walks through the doors is quadriplegic. Now, the disabled person that I'm working with goes, oh, well, they're definitely going to be found disabled. They're definitely, because I mean, they're quadriplegic. So that to me tells me that my brain now knows that their brain understands that someone is way more disabled than they are. Okay, cool. That's a good sign. Next person walks in. Wounded veteran, okay, amputee, PTSD, can't sleep, volatile and hostile, lots of divorces, that kind of situation. And the claimant thinks about it and goes, well, that person is, of course, going to be found disabled. Of course. It's an amputee, fought for his country, right? Probably already has 100% P&T, right? Which is the highest level of disability for the VA compensations, the veterans. Of course. But then they realize the math. Well, that's their 2 out of 5. Game's over. They're done. So the only hope is that the next day when the judge might approve 3 out of 5, that their hearing gets scheduled on the 3 out of 5 day. Okay. Person number 3. Person number 3 is required to use a walker with a seat, has had 3 failed surgeries on their back, and basically has depression and anxiety. Person number 4 is somebody who, has a respiratory and a cardiovascular issue. They can't lift things. They can't really walk too fast. They can get around. They can do some sedentary sitting stuff, but they, you know what I mean? Like they're not going to do it. It's slow, very slow. Next person is somebody claiming anxiety, has been to a mental facility once, did not stay for more than 1 day, and has only been to a therapist 3 times over the past 2 years. Where on the spectrum of disabled people are you? Now, remember, you go back 20 years, you go to a mental facility once or twice, boom, you're going to get benefits. That's not how it is now. That's not the reality of it now. And so what I've realized is that when somebody says definitively, I am disabled, how dare they not find me disabled? They're selling me that they are a victim at the highest level. But to me, that's not a victim at the highest level. A victim at the highest level is brain trauma. They're blind, right? They're quadriplegic. They have MS, and it's bad. That to me is a victim at the highest level. And, I tell you this because I want you to understand ahead of time that at the end of the day, either the Democrats lose this whole victim identity thing or it's going to destroy them. Because you can't have that many unhappy people constantly blaming some guy like, whoever, Trump, JD Vance, Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? What's sad to me is that the thing we do in law school, one of the big things, we do a lot of stuff, but one of the big things is we debate, go back and forth, fire back and forth, devil's advocate. What are your thoughts on this? I'll take this position. You take that position. So to me, when Charlie Kirk was shot, he was a fellow YouTuber. And he was doing the thing that I spent my life doing and preparing myself to be able to do to further my knowledge. He would do a great job. It was an amateur show version. I don't know how well he would do with attorneys prepping, watching his videos, pulling all of his answers ahead of time to counter them. I don't know how he would do against professional attorneys, but against these other academia professors, these other academia students, he would do great. Why did he do so great? It was the passion. He truly believed it. You know, people talk about like, oh, I believe in this. Oh, I believe in that. When somebody believes something, it comes out of their pores. They sweat it. You know what I mean? It's like salty, you know? So, real quick, Raymond Rodden, thank you for the $20 donation. Thank you. Walter, thank you for standing in the middle and keeping it straight and factual. And that's the thing. I try to be in the middle. I feel like I'm still in the middle, but this side just keeps running. Left side keeps running. And so like the middle's shifting. I don't know I don't think anybody knows what the middle is anymore. But I really appreciate the donation. I'll get the phone ready. We'll get the callers rolling so I can debate. Troy the Man, $5 donation. I've been playing Amazing Grace off and on since it happened. Amazing song. I don't know if you've ever heard it performed live by a band that like really believed it. It's like Super Bowl halftime show stuff. It's incredible. You feel the tingles, you know what I mean? So I don't have any rules for this. Normally when we do the live show, I answer questions for free. You get 5 to 7 minutes per call, no story mode, no this, no that, you know, ask your legal question right up front, you know, remember to mute the computer and we'll talk through the phone. But I don't have any rules for this. But I'm doing this, and this is probably going to be a terrible thing to do or a terrible idea, but I'm doing this as a way to honor the memory, who he was, the estate of him, you know, who his family is, what they've achieved in their life, what they were looking to do, how much power he gave to people. So, you know, it's important that we do this because the only thing that matters at the end is that his legacy was to share ideas with people. And if we end up ending lives over ideas, we will never grow into a society that succeeds. So here's the deal. Phone number. Yes, Kosher already put it in. 407-279-1754. Again, 407-279-1754. Please go ahead and give it a call. I'll answer it, whoever calls in first. And then we will debate. And the debate will be on the topic that you like. And I might even take the side that I disagree with just to counter you, cross-examine you, so that you basically can go ahead and fight for what you believe is the truth. And we have the first caller. Oh, wait, the phone cut out. Hold on. We had a caller. We lost it. Hold on. Let me click it again. I'm going to click it. I'll call the person back. Here we go. Putting it on speaker. Speaker is ringing. Here we go. Let's get this person on the call, and then we will rock and roll and see what we can do. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Remember to use a fake name throughout this. What is the topic that you would like to debate?
I'm not sure if you disagree with me. I'll try to make my statement, and if you disagree with me, then you argue with me.
Okay.
I think if you phrase the question as in fraud, everyone will say, no, I don't support fraud. But then there's the question of how do you define fraud, which may have different answers.
Yeah.
I guess my statement is sometimes I feel like the SSA and OIG goes too far. They're too restrictive. They define fraud as too many things. I guess I don't think this was. Can you kind of finish my thought for me and tell me if you agree or not?
So you're saying, are they biting off too much with what they consider to be fraud, or should they limit it more in scope to specific things that people can go ahead and stay within the lines with?
I was having we're trying to keep it friendly, a debate with a person in the chat. I was my doc. I was almost exactly the person you used in your example. I'm the I'm got the heart condition, and I can do things slowly. I'm almost very much that person. I got some other issues, type 2 diabetes, a back issue, some leg pain, blah blah blah, other stuff. But anyway, I can walk. I just can't walk far. I can't walk quickly. So my doctor wants me to walk 20 minutes every day.
Okay.
But every time I used to try to walk to the cemetery, the OIG people would come and fuss at me.
Okay.
Tell me I couldn't do it. And I just didn't understand why. I never said I couldn't walk, but they would tell me not to walk at the cemetery. And I felt like that was a little bit too much.
Well, so, all right. So if we assume that this was definitively OIG and they were basically watching you, investigating you, keeping an eye on you, and, you know, because sometimes they do that. They'll get a van out there. They'll do the whole, you know, thing. Well, they'll watch and they'll take video.
I knew him. He never identified himself. I know he kept some medical stuff with him. He had one of those little finger things that test your oxygen. And
Sure.
You know, I'd walk, and one time he saw me throw up from exercise intolerance.
Sure.
I don't know if you're, but anyway, he'd check on me every once in a while, and I'd start getting out of breath. He'd, you know, put the little thing on my finger, and you know, I saw him multiple occasions, just to be clear, if that's not clear already. But yeah, for me, going to somewhere, walking, if I go somewhere I enjoy, like a cemetery, it helps motivate me. I can try to walk around in my apartment, and I do try to sometimes, but you know, I guess one of your callers recently, some female was talking about hiking, and I guess, you know, you like to exercise in a place that's kind of more motivational sometimes.
So here's what I would say. And all right. So you guys know, I'm not a big fan of fraud, but
Right.
also
Nobody is.
right. But I'm also a huge fan of fraud. I'm going to tell you what fraud is to me. Fraud is the greatest form of innovation because somebody who figured out an easier way to do it. Now, remember, there's two ways. They can go ahead and fraud the government or fraud a system and invent something new that pisses them all off and ruins an industry. And they'll fight it and they'll claim it's wrong and it's illegal. But literally, the creation of electricity that we have running to our houses at some point was viewed as fraud. There was a battle over AC versus DC. You're creating a fraudulent product, so on and so forth. Then there's the other type of fraud, where they're basically leeching off of some entity to gain some advantage. And because there's these two types of frauds, we have to ask ourselves, how do we look at this system of Social Security? I think the future of Social Security, the fixes will be fixed or found or discovered by frauds. People committing fraud that found an easier way to do it. And then people will look at it as a dangerous, terrible, horrible thing that is going to destroy the system and fraud us all out of money. And then it will work on a small scale, and then they'll ramp it up to be massive. So in that version, there's the fraud where society deems it to be wrong, and they're cheating and they're doing it this way. But remember, there was a time when we didn't have, like, you know, washing machines and fridges and stuff like that. And the science that came out, people said it was magic. People said it was fraudulent because it was fake science. And now we got fridges. And now we have, you know, the fan over there and the printer over there and the light over there. You know, we got all this stuff. So to me, innovation comes from people who want to fraud the current system as it is and make something more. But yes, when it comes to OIG, people are saying, hey, they need to dial it back. The opposite is going to happen because now they've got artificial intelligence. So the future that you have to keep in mind is that the government wants to look good. And so innovators and fraudsters, a lot of that stuff is not wanted. Let me tell you a side story. If a lawyer presents a new argument never heard before in a court, do you think the lawyer is applauded or is admonished by the judge?
I would guess admonished.
Yeah, sure as shit. They're going to be admonished. How dare you bring that shit up in my court, right? How dare you? And then slowly over time, it becomes like the standard. So to me, with OIG and the CDI units, it's very profitable. They're going to get to a point where they've caught so many people that it becomes less profitable. And then what do we do with it? Now it's costing us more money to have these investigators. Where's the line? Where's the failure point on this? Where it costs too much to have all these CDI units all over the place because they've kicked off that many people. Do I think they're being too aggressive? Look, we paid for this shit all our lives and all we get is this little bit per month. I mean, yeah. But at the same time, they're still catching big fish. You know what I mean? Like a lot of the people they catch, a lot of these fraudsters, it's pretty big. It's a pretty big, they're doing a racket. They're doing a this, they're doing a that. There's some real fraud there. So my point is, yeah, but the counter argument to it is, are you willing to let more fraudsters steal money from the Social Security Administration just so that you feel more comfortable?
Where do you draw the line question?
Yeah.
I might go back to what you say about there's a reason the Constitution exists. The way I think of that question is a lot of it has to do with, at the time we were English colonies, and a lot of the Bill of Rights was written in response to English government overreach, and the Bill of Rights is Constitution supposed to help prevent government. And we have with the Bill of Rights, we have very specific rights that are, maybe they weren't defined clearly enough because we still debate them today. But like the First Amendment, for example, I guess it gets tricky with psychological things. It grants a right to assembly, but now we have the MOIG that keeps, if you're getting disability for having anxiety, they don't want you to assemble with other people. So I don't know where I'm going with this now. I'm sorry.
So the Bill of Rights exists because people did not trust organizations. Some of them didn't trust corporations. Some of them didn't trust a king. Some of them didn't trust a religion. Some of them didn't trust, basically people getting together in one location, secret societies, right? The first thing that blew my mind, which I don't really go to them, but again, they do their thing. First time I went to a higher level meeting with the Masons, I realized there were a lot of people with real money, and real money is real power. And real power can change outcomes. Because when you have wrath of God money, you got millions, you can change outcomes by paying people to do stuff when you want them to do something. And, First Amendment basically grants you certain things and restricts the government from certain things, but also kind of restricts you a little bit because they didn't really go too detailed. They wanted to keep it broad. You never know. But at the same time, this is all you're going to get. For these categories, this is what you're going to get. There's things, Bill of Rights, First Amendment could have had more to it. It's weird how people don't usually ask, what more could we have added to the First Amendment? What more could we have added to the Second Amendment? Everybody wants to define it more, but I don't mean in the sense of defining it more, making it more minute. I mean in making it broader. How sexy is it to give humans living in an artificially created existence known as a country, how sexy is it to make them more free? Oh, that's super sexy. People never talk about how they could expand the Bill of Rights. They're always talking about how they can define it better. Well, defining it better means you're restricting yourself more.
Along with that, one idea that I've always understood the Founding Fathers had was that America couldn't exist without a moral people, which implies a degree of self-restraint or self-responsibility.
So,
I don't know if that factors in or not.
I think the problem with American society now is that Americans do not know the extremes of human nature like they used to. Look, the Americans born in 2000, 2001, stuff like that. You know what I mean? They don't know war. They don't know war. Closest thing to war they know is what just happened in the news. They don't know having to, carry a sack on your bag that has everything you need to survive in case you get stuck under a rock because they've got you pinned down and all you hear are pings against the rock that would have ended everything. They don't know that. You got a bunch of people running around that are, trying to figure out how they can be more able to suck something off the system as a victim, able to get an advantage from some school because they're this or they're that. It's weird, I mean, look, morality is a moving target. And to rely on morality as the thing that defines the future of America, that's why we have the Constitution. I mean, let me ask you, do you trust the Americans that are capable of voting with creating a new constitution that is superior to the old one?
No.
The answer's easy, right? It's like obvious, But
one thing that we have so many ideas on what moral is now. I hate this is going to sound more terrible than I want it to, but it's the only way I can think of to say it. It's almost like we have too much diversity of thought. And that probably sounds more judgmental than I want it to, but I just don't know how else to put it.
So I'm a study of the Supreme Court with a particular favorite in mind. I like Judge Scalia. I liked him a lot. I liked the way he wrote his briefs, although Ginsburg, I think she made it easier to understand what the hell was being talked about. But Scalia was my jam. And Scalia understood that you need to have so much unlimited diversity of thought to create a gridlock. And that gridlock has to, like a grinding machine trying to swallow something and pulverize it into dust, has to digest it over time. And it was that gridlock that created the greatest ideas that would fit everybody. So to me, you have to have a lot of ideas and a lot of diversity of all kinds of positions and people and things like that to create a struggle and a punishment on people who have thinking minds, to have them come up with innovation. Because if you don't, and everybody's pretty much in the same spot, you're going to get a rule that all those people are going to agree with that's going to F over people that aren't in that spot. And so that's the trick. If you want innovation to create the greatest future that could be for everybody, you got to have that gridlock, lots of diverse opinions, and all those opinions have to go into a machine and they have to be compressed and expanded and basically beat up and powderized and made into this thing where everybody has a shot to add their 2 cents. Because let's call it like it is. You know why we have meetings? Because usually one person doesn't have every idea. You know why we have, all these votes and things like that? Because we vote for politicians that we think are going to be along the agenda lines of what we want. We do that because of the gridlock. So it's our way of providing our input to the system. But look, if it was super easy and we had fewer ideas, stuff would be passed all the time. You just wouldn't like a lot of it. Because think about it. If the country is 37 trillion in debt, right, and it needed to save some money, right, where would they make cuts that you would not like?
Sometimes I wonder if it's the more expendable people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the expendable people usually don't have the voice. They're usually the ones that don't speak out as much. I'll tell you this, though. Let me take the next person real quick. We'll keep rocking and rolling.
I appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. All right, let's get the next person real quick. I missed a bunch of calls. I'm going to see if somebody calls in real quick, and I'll grab it, and we'll go ahead and talk. I guess a rule would be to know the topic of debate and pick a side, and then beat me up with it. Beat me up. Just no sugarcoat. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. I'm ready to debate. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Go ahead. Oh, remember, you got to mute your phone or not. Yeah, mute the computer on your end. Go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Go ahead.
So my question is, go ahead. My question is regarding Social Security and something like verifying the ability to like drive a vehicle. In the instance of like, having Social Security, you might have a review. You're probably, aware of that. I'm just kind of curious, like from the high end to the low end of like, somebody who reviews a case for Social Security. Let's say you have someone from a high end, like an organization that does like your background checks, and they verify you and they say, oh yeah, I know this individual, but they have like a first, second, and third job, so they can't just verify you for someone. Maybe they have a case for themselves. Maybe they're in the criminal justice system, they have a job doing investigations. But you see a counselor or something like that, they can't verify you for a license. Maybe they don't have the ability to verify you at all because it's just kind of like something they're doing as a second job or something like that. You kind of look around, you talk to your insurance agent. You can't find a real organization to support you with finding a way to, let's say, get a license or get a registration for waiver for a vehicle, like to learn how to drive or to drive. In that instance, you've demonstrated you can work in automotive industry, or you could let's say drive a bicycle safely. In this instance, like you've even tried, talking or contacting different organizations, but it seems that there's no one who can verify like your standing. In this instance, also, like let's say you tried to gain this kind of concept of like or reality of like contact and belief, in the system of like finding your way in or out of the situation or kind of getting verification. But you're not in contact with anyone. Let's say an instance you're unable to contact anyone within like a third or second degree. Let's say it's like LinkedIn. So I'm just kind of stuck. I'm in this world. Let's say in this instance, a lot of people within the realm of like they're getting work, and let's say like they find an insurance that work for them. They have bachelor's degrees. I'm not really sure what a normal person would do in this situation, especially if it's like, the high up where it's like kind of like the director is saying, what's going on and this is how it's going. And then kind of the low end, they might be a little bit older. They don't really know what's going on. And it just doesn't really add up or make sense to someone in between, or, it's almost a systematic issue.
All right. So real quick, I want you to take all of that and put it in one sentence. No more, no less, one sentence. That's what you get. Go ahead.
Okay. So I would say, how would it be viable for someone like kind of a little guy to find the ability within the corporate world of finding verification or like kind of finding, I suppose, a review for like, let's say psychological or just a regular review of their case or, their mental stability when, there's a lack of workforce in the area or within this, forensic, mindset, I suppose.
All right. Take 10 seconds. I still don't really know what you're asking me. I think I have a general idea of it. Hit me again with one sentence, highly organized. What is the legal question? Go ahead.
Right. So the legal question is, how would an individual like myself without a bachelor's degree find a review without with lack of money or with the ability to find a review for a psychological case? Where I live, a lot of services available are addiction services. So it's a little bit difficult to find someone who does case reviews because they either usually do these 2-hour reviews, or they don't do a full review of their case basically, or their profile or psychological psychological case, I guess.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and say what you're saying, but I'm not sure what you're really saying. So from the perspective of you, how does somebody do a better job with prepping their claim if they're in an area where, they have a hard time finding psychologists, psychiatrists, or behavioralists to help them? And how does the SSA view people that have certain skills, like driving skills, when it comes to finding somebody disabled? Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say that's primarily correct, but there's kind of a whole other issue on hand. I'm not saying I'm going to go into that, but it's more of the licensure, points of contact with trying to find a way to vocationally to become sound, like looking for work, having a license. It's one of those steps that might follow, in the mental health range of you're unable to drive, you're unable to work, let's say it's drug addiction, or it's post-traumatic stress. In my case, it is post-traumatic stress, but I have one counselor that will say, since you had this prior diagnosis of, let's say it's schizophrenia at 18 years old, but in fact you have another psychologist or psychiatrist that says, this is related to PTSD or OCD. There's not really coincided thought there, because one says, one is like, this person shouldn't drive at all, and the other says this person has experienced gun violence, or a long list of things. They even have scars from when they got attacked or something like that. But the instance of let's say somebody, and I said the big guy can verify some of this information, but the little guy kind of they wander around, they say this is seclusive, and we're not really talked about it, but they strictly deal with drug addiction and things like that. But when you try to find a psychologist, even through insurance, you're left with somebody who's treating something versus the other. I studied a little psychology in college, but the instance of trying to find something that is normalized, finding something that is not going to go into the idea of drugs. I've been off of drugs, or if I've never used drugs in more than 10 years, more than a decade, and I've never relapsed. So it's just kind of this chronic use of using some of this time to kind of unravel this story.
Man, I don't know what you're saying. I don't know what I'm trying so hard to figure out what you're trying to ask me, and I don't know what you're saying. And I'm sitting here and I feel so bad because I want to help you. I don't know what you're saying. You're on a story about drugs, but you're not on them, but then you relapse. And what about the story of driving and the little guy versus the big guy? I don't know what you're asking me. Does anybody understand, in the chat, man, can you just give me one simple version of, that was a story mode, just one sentence on what you're trying to ask me. Cause maybe I'm tired. I don't know, but I am so confused right now as to what you want me to explain. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you can't really figure out this point, but it's more of looking for a psychologist that would be sound in this range of
All right, so let me jump in there. You want to find a psychologist that gives preference to an individual who might have more or less education or certifications, and then to adjudicate you favorably for disability benefits, correct?
Yeah, and I would add, possibly, the instance of let's say a security clearance on that level as well.
So you have security clearance that you've added, and you want it to be adjudicated more favorably to you. When did you obtain the security clearance?
Well, it's been a few years, but the instance is resolution within a court case, basically.
What does that mean, though? A resolution within a court case about what? Was it a disability court case? Was it something related to the security clearance? What?
It was related to witness activity, being able to testify for something.
So witness protection, or a witness that was brought in as a third party representative?
Honestly, I'm not entirely sure, but I just know that I had a court case prior. In the instance of talking to a psychologist or counselor, within the last time I talked to them, they just didn't really piece that together. That there was this whole issue, they couldn't verify it, and then they didn't really know what to do.
All right, call me on Monday. Just kind of organize this in a different way, because man, like I got it, but still I'm not totally sure the direction you want to go with it, because I'm asking about a legal claim and the relevance to security clearance. But all right, Monday, give me a call when I go live and we'll do this then. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, good sir. Thank you. Bye-bye. We're going to get the next caller. Here we go. All right, you're on speakerphone. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. What is your legal question?
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. This is disability resolution, right?
Howdy.
Make sure.
It's me, Attorney Walter Hnot. How you doing?
It's you. Okay. Hey, hon. I watch you a lot, but are you talking to two people?
No, I'm just talking to you.
Okay. I can, yeah. Okay. I've got a question, and mine is simple. I know you're saying thank God. But anyway, I have a son that's 36. And when he was like 11 pounds, I was only 85. And he was born with scoliosis, 36-degree angle.
Okay.
He had trouble from the time, I could tell there was something not, completely off. And kind of left it alone, and then had him checked, and they said he had scoliosis.
Okay.
And there were things I could see some milestones that were missed. And he also had learning disability.
Okay.
I think it was 68 is what he was tested for. He just all boy, wanting to play and not really wanting to go to school. But also he had an intelligence functioning level that was low, kind of low. And I have written to Social Security when he was 12 and tried to get it. They denied him when he was 16. And they denied him again at 18 with an attorney, and they denied him.
So real quick,
and then
what's the legal question though? Because we're kind of going through a timeline here. What's the legal question?
Okay, why are they continuously denying him?
Oh man,
because all the facts are there.
You gotta call me during.
All the facts are there.
Yeah, you gotta call me during the 9 to 5 for that, because like when it's like a general question of like why did the claim not go well, I have to ask you like 15 questions about what's in the claim, what's not in the claim, what happened with the medical treatment, what didn't. I can't do it because it takes too long. It takes me like 30 minutes to figure out what happened, and then go from there. So like during the 9 to 5 on Monday, 9 to 5, give me a call, and then we'll figure out what happened and kind of go from there. Yeah.
Okay. If when you figure it out, are we allowed to start again?
Yeah. You can
now
always.
That the September 12th has gone by, that was our ending day.
Gotcha.
But then I think, damn, you got to start all over again.
Well, I mean, it depends on if he had cores of coverage, if he's got to go SSI only. But on Monday, give me a call and we'll go through the options. Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
I will.
Sounds good.
Thank you, hon.
You too. Have a wonderful night.
Sweet.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Huh?
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
So we're going to shoot for the next person being somebody to debate. That's what we're going to shoot for. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot, ready to do the debate. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. What is your question? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. This is about Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
I hate to admit this, but I've never heard of the man, but it is an outright shame. It should not have happened. It should not have happened at all.
Yeah, I agree. So can you tell me what is the debate topic that you'd like to go over?
I just have a theory on why all these young people are committing these horrendous crimes. I think they're just desensitized due to the amount of overwhelming violence being shown, not on horror movies or TV shows, but on the daily news constantly. They grow up, they see these cops murdering people and getting away with it. And their young minds just cannot process it. And their subconscious just makes them copycat, I guess. That's the only thing I can figure out. But it was a shame about Charlie Kirk. That should never happen to anyone. But my question is, can someone on disability get a GoFundMe page without getting in trouble if they're in dire straits?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be donations. So yeah, they can do a GoFundMe page. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be against the law.
No, yeah, people could donate to you. Absolutely. I mean, SSI might try to figure out if it's a form of income and count it against you, but if it's donations, legally filed stuff like that. Yeah, donations. So,
okay.
Yeah, but indeed, good sir. I'm going to go to the next person so that I can do the debate, because that was kind of to honor the memory of Charlie Kirk. I wanted to do what he would do, which is a debate. So I'm going to catch you a little bit later, good sir. Yeah, but yeah, sounds good.
If I could ask you one more real quick question.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Okay, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I think the only fix to this is if some victim of a horrendous assault gets acknowledgement instead of getting shut down by the federal government. I lived through a police execution. The city I live in is frozen in time with their pants down, and all they can do is cover it up. If they could just acknowledge me, if the federal government could just acknowledge me and give me a presidential handshake or the Medal of Honor and compensate me, I think it would alleviate a lot of stress on a lot of people by seeing that somebody out there got some justice.
Yeah. Okay. No, I mean, I don't disagree.
I lived through a police execution. The man got fired, and I was denied compensation because of a legal technicality loophole. The court said that the city doesn't owe me anything because he had never been to cop school, wasn't certified. That makes absolutely no sense. He was a cop wearing a uniform, going around busting heads. He got fired for it. The city's just caught with their pants down. If the federal government could just acknowledge, thank God for disability that saved my life.
Sure.
But I deserve more. I deserve more. It took away the life I had. Now I just exist. But thank God for that. But if what I was saying is the federal government could just acknowledge this, I believe it would make a lot of people feel better. And it might, ease some tensions.
Okay. No,
and the Charlie Kirk thing would not have happened.
Okay. Well, I tell you,
I'm out to save people, trying to keep this stuff from getting worse.
Yeah. So
I'm the national representative of police brutality. I survived. I'm the one that got away. I am the one that got away, sir.
So what?
You're awesome, man. I just want to tell you that.
Thank you, good sir. I'm gonna take the next caller and keep rocking and rolling. But you have a wonderful night. And I'm sorry those things happened to you, but we'll keep rocking and rolling from there. But thank you, good sir, and we'll go from there.
Thanks for talking to me. Call me back if you got any ideas on this or anything.
Excellent,
you
good
stay
sir.
up late.
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
But no worries, good sir. I'll catch you later.
I see how you do it.
Oh yeah.
I used to stay up late like this until I got hit on the back of my head. And now I sleep.
Yeah.
I sleep usually at least 15, 16 hours a day. But if the phone rings, I'll wake up. If you want to call, talk about anything,
Yeah, no, I hear you. But sounds good, sir. I will catch you a little bit later and we'll rock and roll from there, Yeah.
Thanks for talking to me, sir.
Thank you, good sir. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Okay, good. So, I think we're gonna find somebody to debate. We're gonna find somebody who wants to debate. We have not been super successful at that so far. I'm gonna be honest. We've been not doing very well at that. I think if I were to give myself a grade on finding people to debate, I'm probably at a D+. Although I don't think a D+ is a real grade. I think it's just a D. I think C- and C+ is a thing. I'm not really sure. So let me see if we can find somebody to essentially debate and go from there. Here we go. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are only debating tonight. What is the topic of debate that you would like to go through? Hello? Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay, cool. So we're gonna find, we're definitely a D- at this point. We are not moving in the direction of doing what I thought was going to happen. We might have to try this earlier because it's like 12:53 a.m. So people might not be sleep. I don't even know. Can somebody please call me that wants to debate? That's all I'm asking. You have a topic. You're excited about it. Here we go. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. What is the topic that you would like to debate?
Oh, hey, Attorney Walter. I had to call from a landline. My cell phone wasn't working too well.
Sure.
Well, if you win your disability CDR, the long form, and you provided unbelievable amount of records for your follow-up care, but they still want to do a lot of surveillance on you and use their highest level of surveillance and follow you around if you go down the street. I mean, even if you go down a mile down the road, within 10 minutes they send people, or you go to deposit some money in the bank so that at the ATM, so you don't bounce something when you go under a little bit.
Man, you gotta give me a topic to debate. It's like the point of the video, and we're not looking good. We're not doing so good. We need a topic to debate. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see here. I watched the Charlie Kirk thing on what was coming through with the videos that came through, and
topic of debate. Hit me with it. Just hit me with it. Go for it.
okay.
If you don't have one, it's okay. I'll let me take the next caller then. But just hit me with it. Topic of debate.
How about
Skittles or M&Ms? Come on, something.
ballistics? 30 cal rounds do a lot of damage.
Yeah. Okay.
On impact, you shoot a deer.
Okay.
It's going to go in and leave a
Huge hole in the back. Yeah.
Coke-sized hole in the front and massive damage coming out the back. Probably
Even bigger hole.
10 inches.
Okay. What are we debating?
So, they wanted to say that the supposed person that they're inquiring about used a Mauser or something that was a World War II type of wooden long rifle, and so they're saying that's what they're accusing of him of using. But that round is a big round. It's not a mid-level 30 cal.
All right, here's what we're gonna do on Monday. You got to call me with the topic of debate. Because I'm trying, man. But ain't none of that was a debate. That was just what is the gun of choice? So it said, what was the thing used? Yeah.
They're saying that the person of the person that is of suspicion used a 30 cal. But that's a massive. Like there'd be no neck left. It would be gone, and you wouldn't carry somebody into a personal vehicle because he would just be in such bad shape.
Okay.
There wouldn't be much to carry.
We can't debate what should have happened to his body as a result of the thing used. We can't do that. So I'm going to catch you a little bit later, good sir. Monday, catch up. We'll rock and roll from there, okay?
How do I get the ROI? Like, how would I get a copy of that?
If it exists. Yeah. All right. Well, wait. No, we're doing the debate thing. I will catch you on Monday. Okay. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Charlie said that Mormons is okay to have a bunch of babies and stuff, but he goes, person in the audience.
I'm going to take
about religion.
Let me take the next person though, because I want to do debate. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Okay, here we go. Debate question. Good sir, what is your debate question, or what is the debate topic that you would like to battle over? Go ahead.
Hello.
Howdy. This is Attorney Walter Hnot. What would you like to debate?
I would like to debate First Amendment right, free speech. I think you should be able to say whatever you want to say, despite people's feelings getting hurt.
So that includes, you mean with the extension of it being violent speech, or do you mean without violent speech? Like, where's the cut?
You have the right to speak your mind, and we need to protect the First Amendment. I think people's feelings is ridiculous.
All right. So you want,
No one should be sued. Nobody should be, you should be able to be protected to speak your mind and express yourself.
all right. So you want,
Not in a violent way.
but unlimited
Sometimes
free speech.
it could be offensive.
Yeah. Okay. But you want unlimited free speech, right? So your stance is we should be able to say whatever we want to anybody.
Yeah.
All right. So if I said to you, right, that you had, the chance to say to the president of another country the horrible plans that you had for that person that would end their rule of being a president or a ruler directly to their face, do you feel that would be going too far?
No.
Okay.
I have the right. If you're in the United States and you come visit the United States, I should be able to tell you,
how you would end their life.
I think your regime is a joke.
Well, no. I'm not saying that the regime is a joke. I'm saying that you're telling them structurally how you're going to end their life.
Well, that's murder.
Well, that's
Like, that's
premeditated. that's
Like, why would I want to tell you something? I'm going to commit a crime. I'm talking about you should be able to speak your mind and not be, sued or persecuted.
Okay, but then where's the cutoff? Where's the end line? Because we now know telling somebody that you're going to commit a crime is not the brightest idea. Do you feel like people should be able to go ahead? Should we draw the line there?
I think you should be able to express your opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Regardless of your feelings. Like if I don't agree with your theology, your ideas, I should be able to express myself. I don't care if your feelings get hurt.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let's say that you have an opinion, right? That everybody in let's say a particular religious group should be terminated as a result of your belief. Do you feel that freedom of speech should be protected of you telling those people that?
I should be able to express myself. If you're atheist or some other religion, you should be able to observe your religion. But I have every right to form my opinion, tell it to your face.
All right, but what if you go to a daycare and you're telling the daycare kids about the worst parts of what's on the dark web, and they have to sit there and listen to it? Do you feel like that's too far? See, I'm hitting you with some tough stuff.
I understand the dark web. I mean, when it comes to children, I don't think they'll even comprehend.
Well, where do we draw the line for kids? Because you shouldn't be able to just unlimited unload on some kids. Like you can't be like,
like sex books and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, where's the line? Yeah. If you're going into what the dark web has about people who are essentially, basically, used and abused, for those acts, right? And you walk in,
that becomes criminal. That becomes a criminal. I'm talking about speaking your mind and regardless of your feelings, because it seems like these days people are very sensitive.
Well, what about the kids' feelings? What about telling them about how people are trafficked and the good and the bad of it?
What, human trafficking? Like telling them to protect themselves?
Well, I mean, not only that, but showing them pictures and explaining to them how it happens and what happens to them and what happens after the people who are trafficking them have used them up and they're no longer of use.
I mean, when I grew up, I was educated in school about drugs and needles and at that time, AIDS and HIV prevention. If they didn't educate us, I was in an environment where that was heavy.
All right, but
heroin addicts.
All right, but let's say this: you walk into a preschool.
Educating, but not graphically. That's not free speech.
Well,
I'm talking about speaking
your mind
without persecution.
Okay, but so let's say you walk into a daycare, right? And you're speaking your mind about, people that you hate and how you don't think that those people should be able to live in America anymore and that they should be exported and, bad things should happen to them. Is that too much?
Well, that's your entitled to your opinion. I don't have to agree with it.
Okay. But what do we do about the
I don't
kids,
know what
though?
this-
Because the
with-
kids
with
don't
the
understand
children,
it.
Like I wouldn't.
Yeah. Because the kids aren't
It depends
adults.
on what age of kids.
All right. Oh, okay. All right. So now, what do you think?
I'm not understanding. I'm saying I'm not going to go to school and express myself, but I'm saying in the work environment or any environment I'm in, other than kids, because I wouldn't hold a conversation with a child the same way what I do with an adult.
All right. Well, let me do this. Let's say that you were part of I don't know, racial ethnic group that some soldier in America didn't like because he had to go against that nation or whatever. And that soldier was really mean to you because he had preconceived notions about what some group was like because he had to fight them in another nation. Do you feel like him unloading on you with all this mean hatred and stuff like that would be acceptable, considering he's just speaking his mind?
I've dealt with it. Now, so you're entitled to your opinion, and the opinion I value the most is mine. And that's the beauty of the United States. I've been said stuff to me regarding as a female, as a Latino, just in general. That's just being a blue collar, working a job. I've been spit on, cursed.
Okay. All right. So how would you counter me? Counter me with the kid thing, counter me with the age thing, counter me with the unloading of, threats thing. How would you counter that?
I don't think free speech, I think, if someone threatened you walk away, I wouldn't debate. Like, but if I form an opinion, who are you to tell me what to believe? How should I express myself?
But what if your opinion is just obviously wrong and you're willing to commit atrocities to back it up?
Well, then that's just gray area. That's crime. I'm talking vocal. Like, you should be able to go on social media and vent, speak your mind without being censored.
Well, okay, and I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but what if we have somebody that's got like really bad multiple personality disorder, and that person, who's sometimes one person, sometimes somebody else, is basically unsound to be in a courtroom and give testimony? Should we still protect that person's right to give their opinion online?
Usually, if someone's like that, most likely it won't have an audience.
I mean, that's one way to throw them in the corner.
If you're not coherent, how is anybody going to hold a conversation with you?
There are people on YouTube that literally throw things at each other, and that's their entire show, and people love it and watch it, and it's ridiculous. And then they scream obscenities and basically make weird sounds, and it's got more viewers than I'll ever have. So I don't know. I think people kind of like it a little bit out there, like it a little bit crazy or like it a little bit odd, because it's like, whoa, look what they're. Yeah.
But you should be able to choose to be part of social media or not. I mean, you can exit.
I mean,
you can exit that page. Or I'm just saying you should be able to express yourself.
All right, so here's the deal. I got to go find something to plug the phone in because the phone's about to die. I want you to, for 10 seconds, think of one barrier, one limitation you would put on free speech, what you think is the most important barrier you would need to put on it. And then when I get back in 10 seconds, you got to tell me it. Here we go. I'll be right back.
Free speech, I think any threat of bodily harm is no longer free speech.
Okay. What was the one restriction that you believe freedom of speech should have?
Bodily harm, like you threatening somebody. I think you should be able to express your opinion without having to get physical or intimidate or threaten somebody.
Okay. All right. That's good. All right. I'm going to grab the next caller and we're going to keep debating. Okay.
All right. Take care.
You have a wonderful night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Perfect. I'm going to go ahead and set this up. Let me get this phone thing over here real quick. There we go. Phone is, I hit the button. Did I might have hit the wrong button. All right, guys, call in whoever that person was again real quick, and I will get this thing set up and we will be good to go. Waiting for the next caller to call in, and then I'm going to go ahead and pick up. Now we got the phone at 6% charge. Here we go. Actually, I can click this last person who called in. Hold on. No, wait, hold on. All right, here we go. Speaker is on. What topic would you like to debate? Go ahead. Oh, I can barely hear you. Say it again.
That there's no such thing as hate speech.
Oh, there's no such thing as hate speech. All right, how do you define hate speech?
By the current legal definition in the USA.
Okay, give it to me.
I don't know if I can.
You are so prepared. I can feel you. Yeah, you're a studious man of the book. So, all right.
MSNBC describes it.
Okay, I'm not using that. Hate speech, law dictionaries. Yeah, I'm definitely not using MSNBC or any of that junk. All right, so let's see. The legalities of hate speech, the Black's Law Dictionary. Often discussed on a variety of platforms, hate speech and legalities associated with it can be a hotly debated topic. Hate speech is loosely defined by laypersons as any offensive speech targeted towards people based on race, religion, sexual orientation, or gender. Opinions about how such speech should be handled by legal authorities vary. Few seem to be familiar with the actual legalities of hate speech, and it is uncommon for it to be confused. And it is common for it to be confused with other crimes where hatred is believed to be a motivating factors. Which laws govern hate speech? First Amendment, yada, yada, yada. Under the First Amendment, American citizens have the legal right to say whatever they'd like to. While much ado is often made about so-called hate speech, no satisfactory definition for this type of speech exists within the confines of the law. Not to be confused with hate crimes, a person's speech does not affect another person's physical condition or personal property and is therefore not punishable by law. Are there exceptions? There really aren't any exceptions to this rule, but there are accompanying circumstances which can lead to a crime. All right, so just your whole theme.
You're saying the term hate speech is just a political term, that it's not really a legal term.
Well, it's used as a political term because the politicians are always squawking about it. But legally, we don't have a definition that is definitive on a federal level across all states. So
well, then I just wasted your time. Sorry.
Well, no, I think you made a good point. Hate speech is an expression that a lot of people on the left want to go ahead and have banned. And what's weird about it is that the people on the left use hate speech against people on the right constantly. Yeah. It's nonstop. It's like, give it a break. They're screaming, they're yelling, they're shouting, all these damning terrible things. So, all right, here's what I think should happen with hate speech. Hate speech can come in many forms. Hate speech can be threatening with mean things about a race or sexual orientation or about how you grew up. Do you feel hate speech should include terminology related to threats?
To what?
Terminology related to threats.
To threats. Well, that's already illegal. It's already illegal to threaten people. So,
not always. Not always. Depends on how you threaten them. Because remember,
that's a tough one.
It's the question of, is the person like, okay, so let's say you say to somebody, well, you know what's going to happen to you. And like, if you said that to me, I'd be like, I don't know. I don't know. But if you said that to somebody you knew and you both worked at a pig farm and you went, you know what's going to happen to you, then that other person would automatically understand that something bad would happen and they'd end up in the pig pit getting eaten. So where do we draw the line?
Well, probably the same way that you would legally draw the line. You know, it's already illegal. I mean,
so usually usually, okay, so there was a Supreme Court case, Snyder Phelps, that basically talked about this idea where if the speech led to like harms that were like real harms, like, they were going to happen, they were happening right there, they were directly related to it, it was imminent, it was boom right then.
A reason to believe imminent harm.
Yeah. So like if it was going to boom right in that spot, happen right then and there, and then incited and it excited and people did it, then is it actionable?
Well, that's already illegal, though.
Okay, so it's illegal because the result caused it to be illegal. But if there's nothing that happens, it's not actionable, right? It's not something we're like.
I'm trying to think of an example. I'm trying to think of an actual example that would clarify this.
Well, I mean, look, if you said, hey, I'm going to go and put you through the grinder, right? And then I said to you, okay. And then I hit you over the head with a baseball bat, right? What do we do?
Well, that's not really hate speech.
It's you can put me through the grinder.
Not the way that hate speech is being defined currently popularly.
No, it's hate speech. I
would argue that the way the term hate speech is currently applied in the United States has more to do with suppressing dissent than it does with anything else.
Okay, but dissent of what?
Dissent of anything.
That's everything. Man, if you said I like McDonald's and I said how dare you, I love Burger King, now we got hate speech.
Well, if we're going to be specific, then
clearly Wendy's, or actually Chick-fil-A. I mean, clearly. My point. They get that Waffle House in there. Don't leave them out. They don't make good pancakes like Judy, but let me tell you, their waffles, they got the fake blueberries in them. So, all right. So, to me, if somebody's going to dissent, people are saying that's hate speech. How dare you? And the reality is this, okay? We don't have a definition for hate speech because we don't know how somebody's going to react to it. Other countries have it where if you say something really mean to another person, then they have an actionable claim against you. But who has time for that shit? People say mean stuff to people all the time. What level of mean?
They want the time for it in the UK. I mean,
the UK, yeah, I wouldn't use the UK as an example. They're an example of what we fixed. I would not use that as like a starting point other than a historical starting point. I wouldn't say that there were solutions in the UK. The UK you just saw what happened. They put up a bunch of flags and rounded up a bunch of the protesters with Palestine. All right. So my question to you is, if people are unnaturally upset from speech that an average person would traditionally be totally fine with, should they have an actionable claim?
No, of course not.
Okay. So now we move it to somebody who reasonably would be upset. If somebody says something very harmful and hatred-filled to somebody who would reasonably get upset, should they have an actionable claim?
Well, no, because simply upsetting someone shouldn't be the standard that you're shooting for. I mean, all sorts of things upset me, and no one gives a crap that they're upsetting me. I care. Well, you care, but I mean,
yeah. Now you just got it. You just got how deep that joke was. You just indeed. Yeah. You just got that. We were talking about like, you're like, nobody cares. I'm like, man, I care. And what we're talking about is the level of care and what should be actionable, right? If somebody reasonably would be offended, unreasonably would be offended, somebody who's like dead on the inside, you could just, piddle all over their.
I would argue, here's my argument.
Yeah.
My argument is that corporations say things that upset me and reasonable people every single day, and we have no recourse whatsoever.
So what do you want to do about it? Let's create some hate speech.
I don't think I can legally say that.
There you go. There you go. Shit's actionable. I'm telling you. Somebody will find a way and a judge to approve it. So, anything happens in California, man. The judges out there.
That would be considered hate speech.
That would be capital crime hate speech in California. You can do that in LA. Oh my goodness. They would have to export you.
I'm not in California.
Export you to Texas. You'd be admonished and exported. Yeah, man. I mean, here's the thing. Hate speech, look, people feel bad, but people don't have thick skins anymore. Like that's actually part of the thing. This is what happened with Charlie. Like that kid
My
didn't.
biggest objection to the term is this.
Okay.
I'm an adult.
Mm.
I'm supposedly free.
Yep.
Right? I have a right to hate what I hate. But I don't have a right to talk about it? How does that make any sense in a free country?
You're right to hate on the inside, but you don't have a right to talk about it because you might offend somebody, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Well, you do have a right to talk about it. You just don't have a right to talk about it in a way that would cause somebody to,
You don't have a right to talk about it in the way corporations are allowed to do it.
Well, I mean, corporations get in trouble even more. They get sued for big money. But, the problem is when somebody reacts aggressively. Here's the reality. People should have a right to say whatever they want. But Americans are so weak-minded and, thin-skinned that a lot of people are fragile now. And because they're fragile, they don't know what to do other than to sit there and seethe and be angry. And then we end up with a situation like this where some kid...
I think I agree with the late Troy that you can talk about it and you can back it up with force.
Yeah, but that means you're always prepared, and people aren't always prepared.
Well, that's why people don't. That's why people are afraid. That's why people don't.
So, I mean, we can use the Mandalorian, you talk of it only if you know it.
I would argue the average person is afraid to say what they really think in America.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, the only people that do get any airtime are the cray-crays.
Well, yeah, because they're all, they're the ones that are exciting and different. They make people feel smart and normal. They make people feel accepted.
What happens to them?
Yeah, that's the truth. That's a good point.
So
that's a good point. That is a very interesting point.
Self-preservation will say the most outrageous things. I would argue a lot of people that have said the negative things about Charlie, about what happened to Charlie, that the majority of those people weren't saying those things because they believed those things so much as because they wanted attention.
I think some of them wanted it. I think some of them definitely wanted it.
The biggest problem with our culture and society right now is that people want attention so badly that they'll say things that they know that they shouldn't say and that they don't really believe.
This is what I saw with this whole situation. Democrats of the younger type, under 60-year-old, have become the island of misfits. They didn't fit into a traditional marriage. They didn't have traditional kids. They didn't have traditional this. And so they feel...
Yeah, they got told they were trans.
They were also, basically told that they were not the thing that America wanted. And so as a result, they seethe. And anybody that has the wife with the kids and the family and pushing the agenda of Christianity was a threat to the island of misfits. And as a result, they have their little army of people who do not want the norm to succeed. And so when they see their opportunity to threaten the norm, they take it because it's a good take. It's low hanging fruit. It's a way to hurt the thing that is big, the thing that is the norm. And I think what I've realized from it is some of these people really do want that, because obviously you can see they act on it. That's why this whole thing happened. I think the people who, and I think what the statement you made that I think was brilliant was that people don't really care about what the crazy person does because their value is reduced because they're just not something we value because they don't have enough of the normal traits for us to think they're of value. You know, like if somebody has a great job and a great car and a great house and a great this and a great spouse and great kids and blah, 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 we value them very highly. And then it comes into the question of equality. Are all Americans worth the same thing? And the people on the island of misfits are tired of not having equality apply to them and have them feel like they are on the same standing place as somebody like Charlie Kirk. Because Charlie was a highly respected individual by most. But the people from the island of misfits hated him because he represented the thing that they could never be. And people who were part of the norm devalued those on the island of misfits. You know, they were the deductibles that we didn't want to have to take and look at and deal with, etc. And as a result of that, they feel like the only way to hurt the giant beast of normies is to basically support the violence against them. So in that regard, do you feel like the normies and the island of misfits should be allowed to keep presenting all this hate and violent speech?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's a lot to unpack there. I agree and I disagree with the characterization of the Isle of Misfits.
Okay, go for it.
I think that a lot of those people have been manipulated and gaslit and kind of driven crazy by multiple factors, ranging from the political environment, which is pretty much nuts, the corporate media, which is even more nuts, the pharmaceutical industry, which exercises way, way more influence than it should, and by corrupt academia has become hopelessly corrupt.
But what's the point?
So, I mean,
yeah.
Well, the point is those people are what they are because society has hammered them into that, has made them into that.
So how is Island of Misfits incorrect?
It's incorrect because when the term Isle of Misfits makes me think of that cartoon when I was a kid.
Okay, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. It's not where I was expecting you to go with it. I did not expect that at all.
Those are totally different than what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, to me, the Island of Misfits nowadays are like, you know, the super far left where all their hair is a different color and they got 4 different genders. And also, Island of Misfits includes disabled people. You know what I mean? It's a class of individuals that are fragile that we have to protect, from the normies, because the normies would take advantage of them. You know, and that's I think what you're getting at is, you know, nowadays, like, you know, people are warped. They're warped because, you know, the academia model tells them that they've been structurally abused and beaten and they're a victim in 4 different ways. And, you know, the history of this and the history of that. And I get it. But like that, you know, if you're one of those, like, I'm oppressed, then you're an Island of Misfit. just like the disabled, except the disabled actually effing are, they got the real oppression. You know what I mean? Like they're not in college going like, oh, poor is me. No, they actually got it. Like they can't work a job. They don't have that's one of the things that always gets me going is, you got a disabled person who can't work because, they were in a car accident and their life is forever changed versus.
Well, your perception is going to be much different than the average person's perception because you actually interact with people who are truly disabled.
Yeah. Yeah.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
So that completely shapes the way you see things.
I will be the captain of the misfits on the island of misfits. I will have a big hat with a feather. You can pick the feather for me. It will be shiny, I hope. No, I agree with you. I get it. And, the thing is this, like, I'm a bleeding heart. I try to protect people that can't be protected. And that's why I try to show disabled people how to like protect their benefits because they lose their benefits. They're shit out of luck. They're not like some brat kid at UCLA going like, marginalized bigot, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It is anarchy, and all this. Come on.
Well, it's life or death. It's either they get their benefits or they die under a bridge. Exactly. And people don't seem to realize that that's actually happening more and more in America.
Exactly. But, that's kind of my point. And what's so disgusting with the modern reality is that you have an entire class of individuals. And see, this is why I say like the old school Democrat wasn't such a bad thing. Help the poor, help the homeless, help the disabled, create a social net to keep them moving in a positive direction. But now that's a Republican. The Republicans are helping the veterans. The Republicans are helping the homeless. The Republicans are helping the disabled in some ways. Other ways, they're effing them over by firing all the people at the SSA. But if the Republicans can make the economy much better, then that's going to be way better. The greatest thing a politician can do at this point at the highest level is make the economy better for the disabled. That's it. That's the greatest thing they can do. Because when they can't afford their food, like the disabled can't get their milk, their cheese, their bread, their yogurt, and they can't afford those things. That's the worst. A starving disabled person on government benefits that can't afford to eat is unacceptable. So back to your original theme. Yeah, back to the
aggravated all the more by the cost of everything going up and the dollar being worth less.
Yeah, but see, that was all preventable. It was all preventable. It was.
I don't know if it was preventable. It was part of the plan. I mean, we just went through the greatest migration of wealth to the ultra rich in all of human history.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, there was a time where communism existed, and I think that would be the greatest transfer of wealth to the ultra rich. Kings and queens, ultra transfer of wealth, because you had peasants and such. I mean, it was a different gig. I just think I think the Democratic Party says one thing at this point. We stand for this, and then they do the exact opposite of that. And then they end up in this weird position where they're like, Republicans did this to us. Sometimes Republicans suck, but they're not sucking as much as the Democrats now. And, there's good Democrats. They can't get any funding from the billionaires because they keep saying the things that'll work. And the billionaires, they don't like that. Billionaires like problems that are hard to fix, that take money from the American people to be redirected.
Well, they created all those problems.
Right. Pharmaceuticals not healing people, billionaires.
They created all those problems. The medical community that is exploitative, that makes sure that nobody's ever cured, that makes sure that people stay sick and get sicker every year, that actively conceals treatments and cures from the public, actively and aggressively, with brutality, suppresses treatments and cures.
Well, imagine this.
It even corrupts the science itself, the academia itself.
Imagine if we had a cure for every impairment that a person could have. They'd still find a way, the billionaires, to make us work until we couldn't work.
Well, because they're insatiable. They have to have their own.
Well,
even like everybody else, they have their egos and their arrogance and their greed and their.
You know, the funny thing is, Democrats always say, when is too much enough? When do you have enough? When have you finally reached that point? Which is ironic because, you know, you look at Barack Obama, hyper rich individual living on multiple islands. You look at, you know, different Democrats going backwards in time. They're hyper rich. They're ultra rich, and they're preaching this, you know, tax the rich bullshit. Yet they'll never pass anything that actually does that. So I guess what my structured realization with the whole hate speech thing is, originally it was proffered that young people are warped because they see this, you know, they see all this violence on TV, and therefore they're just PTSD all the day long, right? Okay, cool. But then if you go back to World War I, World War II, upcoming 3, you go to Vietnam War, you go to the Korean War, you go to the Great War, you go to the Civil War. There were a lot of young people who still made America work, and they saw a lot more carnage in the flesh. So I guess my argument to you is, why are Americans so pitiful now and so easily destroyed emotionally? How the hell did that happen?
Historically, historically, if you look at the Civil War, I mean, if the Civil War is the most photographed war in human history, but once it ended, nobody wanted those pictures.
Yeah.
And there's relatively few of them that have survived. As a matter of fact, a lot of the plates, because pictures were made on glass plates back then, a lot of the plates ended up as glass in greenhouses.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Yeah.
The ones that weren't just crushed and destroyed outright.
Well, I mean, sea of red, you know, that's the problem.
Yeah, and then the period immediately after, all sorts of crazy stuff happened in America. All sorts of nutsy, religious kind of, revivalist kind of stuff, and the whole tuberculosis epidemic, and all sorts of crazy things happened. People were nuts. I mean, during the Civil War, we had a president who had a child die in the White House from drinking bad water.
Different times.
Very different time. Almost inconceivable. I mean, we tend to judge the past by the fruits of the past in the present. That the present is built on the fruits of the past, and we tend to judge the past by the things that the past didn't have, the advantages the past didn't have. They didn't have penicillin. They didn't have water. The concept of sanitation was completely not what you would think.
Sure. But let's say this. Let's say we had an average Republican, young female, let's say 19 years old. We gave her a machete and we asked her to go and end the life of a cow that would provide meat for the family. Do you think a modern day 19-year-old female Republican would be able to do that?
I don't think most modern Americans are capable of doing that. I mean, it's going to be a very small percentage of people that are, but it's always been kind of that way. You know, that's why there was someone who, that was their job, to be the butcher.
Do you think there's percentage-wise more people capable of being a butcher now or back in the day?
Of animals, probably not. No. I mean, there were probably a lot more people that were capable of doing it back in the day. It's hard. I mean, how can I judge a past that I didn't live in?
Well, if we're talking about people killing something, I mean, the reason we're doing this show is because that happened.
I mean, I went to school with people that slaughtered cattle.
Sure.
You know, and we talk about it in school the next day. You know, so that was like 70s and 80s, you know. So that's not something that's shocking to me.
But why should it be shocking at all? I mean, human beings are basically scavengers and hunters. So it is designed into the fiber of our DNA to hunt. So why are we shocked at all?
Well, as far as killing animals.
I mean, we used to not be shocked about killing people either. You go back to the hominid days, early days. That was part of existence.
Well, pre-agriculture, humans were a very different animal.
I mean, are they? I mean, look at how many people we have that are riding off the rails claiming that they have such bad, you know, and we don't know what the legal discourse is going to be on this thing. He might be claiming that, you know, even though it seemed pretty premeditated, he might be claiming that he has hallucinations and which caused him to do all this.
Every generation in modern time has managed to poison itself with chemicals. And I mean, modern humans are so different from humans just 300 years ago that it's not even a fair comparison. The people that are alive in America now, you know, the majority of them are not healthy people compared to people just in our grandparents and great grandparents' time. I was fortunate enough to know all my great grandparents, you know, and they grew up when there weren't any cars, and lived through that whole transition through World War I, World War II.
So people were tougher back in the day, but were they better for it?
Colleges for teachers when my grandmother became a teacher.
Yeah, it was just the people who like to read.
And the first schools for teachers, do you know what they were called?
How far back are we talking? Are we talking like Egyptian times?
In America, the first schools for teachers in America were called normal schools.
Normal schools?
Yeah.
I like it. It's simple.
Schools, yeah.
It's very direct.
And that's a relatively new thing. There being a standard for education for teachers is a relatively new thing.
Yeah, but it doesn't seem to be working.
Well, not now.
Not now.
Have nose rings and are trans. So I mean,
yeah, they're pumping kids full of any idea that they can. And I mean, here's the thing. Look, I mean, I'm not saying the gay community or the trans community shouldn't have a voice, but I do think for preschoolers, third graders, I think that that's something that they're not going to appreciate and understand it. But at the same time, you're arguing against the reality that some kids, you know, they're born that way. So what's
Charlie
too early?
Had trans. I'm reading like the chat. Charlie had trans people on his show.
Sure, of course he did. All the time.
He had regular guests who were trans people.
Of course.
You know, a lot of the way that Charlie was represented is being currently represented is abhorrent. And I wasn't even a big fan, you know, but I'm very internet savvy. So,
so final question to you. Here's a toughie.
Of his video. Okay.
What outcome should come of the kid-like adult who made a choice, now has to live with it?
Gosh, I'm not quite sure what you.
What's the outcome? What happens to him? What should criminal law? What should the court system? What should the judge do?
When a kid does something.
No, when this kid did what he did.
Oh, well, he wasn't a kid. He's 20, isn't he?
Sure, he's a kid adult. No doubt about it.
No, he's 20. He's an adult. I mean, I was emancipated from my parents at like 16 and had a full-time job I already had that full-time job for 2 years. So
what was that? The 80s?
Yeah.
Okay. And the 80s are like today?
No, I mean, I worked in radio in the 80s, and I don't think there's even a career that.
That was a different world then. Yeah. Yeah. Radio in the 80s was wild. Yeah.
I'm trying to think what career it would even equate to now. I'm at a loss. I'm at a total loss.
So what do we do with this adult kid?
Well, unfortunately, he did it in Utah, so Utah law is going to have to decide whether or not he gets capital punishment.
Yeah, but that didn't answer the question. You just told me Utah will tell us. What are we going to do with this kid? Tough question. You're the judge.
Well, I mean, you're asking me what I would do if I was a judge?
Yeah.
I would, I wouldn't be a judge for law because I don't believe that. I have my own beliefs around the incident, and I don't think that. I don't believe for a moment the kid is 100% responsible. I think there are too many weird things, and I think other entities are involved. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I don't believe that he acted alone. I believe the other entities are. I believe the government was involved in some way.
All right, now here's the deal. Here's the deal. I asked you a tough question.
I mean, I watched the police for an hour and a half today, pat themselves on the back about what a great job they did catching this kid. His dad turned him in. Okay, the FBI and the local police didn't do anything.
Well, they were doing a bunch of stuff, but what they were doing didn't result.
They spent a lot of money, but Dad turned him in.
Well, yeah, but remember, they put it out there, the images were out there, the recognized, they could not put it all out there. They could have not worked hard. But all right, aside from that, you're the judge. How do you punish the kid?
I'm not sure he's the one that should be punished.
He pulled the trigger. What do we do with him?
You mean if after trial and evidence is presented, and that is the conclusion, I'm assuming.
He was the one with the gun. He pulled the trigger. He was the one who climbed up on the building. You go back a full string of a lot of events. It doesn't matter who drove him there when it comes to did he intend to. He did. You can't blame it all on the driver. You can't blame it on the person that might have called him and given him money, that might have been part of some political action panel, whatever. What do you do with the kid? He's an adult. Gotta adjudicate him under the adult standard.
Whatever his CIA handler wants done with him.
Why are you so afraid to tell me what you think should happen to him? Is it because of hate speech?
It's not what I think should happen if I'm the judge. It's out of my hands. It's what the law says happens to him, as you are well.
But you know what the law is.
I mean,
you got some options here.
The law dictates that he either spend the rest of his life in prison or face capital punishment.
Or firing squad or lethal injection.
Yeah, capital punishment.
Okay, so what are you going to do with him? You're the judge.
Well, I mean, I generally.
Come on, you came on strong. You were a bull in the beginning. Now you're like a little fairy walking around going like, I don't want to bruise my wings. I'll flap them too hard, I might get a wrinkle.
It's because the law dictates what a judge does. It's not up to the judge. The judge has to abide by the law.
The judge has to abide by. Are you
asking me something separate? Are you asking me what I would do as a person, as me?
I'm saying,
or as an agent of the state, because an agent of the state has to abide by the law. And
I'm saying you've got three options. He's probably going to have a panel there as part of this adjudication, and this court will obviously be put on TV. What I'm saying to you is, if you were the sole adjudicator, the judge, what would you do with the kid?
Well, I mean, if he's guilty and it's proven in court that he's guilty, then whatever the law states in Utah is a procedure. A judge isn't God. A judge has to go by the law, has to follow the law. It's not. It's
Oh,
not
God,
extreme.
man. This is a simple question.
Okay.
It's a simple
Sorry
question.
about that.
I mean, it's under the assumption you have two options here. He's either
It would be
mentally
simple if I didn't know
incapable.
anything about the law or how it works. I mean,
All right, but he's either mentally incapable in some way because there was some sort of forcing, right, for him to do this. He was under duress, although that doesn't seem to be the case. Doesn't seem to be the case
I
at
think he
all.
was driven crazy. Definitely, I definitely think he was driven insane. Yeah, I definitely believe that the political climate and whatever he was exposed to drove him nuts.
So you think no death
Work
penalty because the system that everybody
I didn't
else
say
comes
that,
into
but
contact?
What I'm saying is when we see these people on social media reacting the way they have to what happened to Charlie, most of those people, I cannot say with a straight face you are sane.
Yeah, I would
Something
agree.
wrong with their mind.
I would agree. They
There's
suffer
something wrong.
from
Something has happened to them. Something fundamental has happened to them and gone wrong, and they are not sane.
Okay. So you're saying he is inherently, because he's a hate Charlie person, not sane, and therefore what?
Something happened to him to make him insane.
Okay, cool. But now what do you do with him? He still pulled the trigger. He still climbed up on the roof.
Well, he's still guilty according to American law, and there's no distinction made.
So what would you do with him? Just say it. Be strong. Be powerful. Give it a go. You're anonymous on here.
He's going to end up in prison for the rest of his natural life.
You think he's going to end up in prison?
Well, it is Utah. I mean, when was the last time Utah executed someone?
All right. So here's what I see a lot with people who want to debate. They start off strong with, the bold but general argument. Then we get down to something, right? Where do you stand? What do you believe? Knowing the facts that are presented up to this point, what would you have done?
I don't know all the facts.
So you're gonna say you don't know all the facts, therefore you won't adjudicate.
Well, how could I adjudicate without having all the facts?
It happens every single trial. There is no perfect trial. There's no judge that has every fact ever.
I know, but there hasn't been any evidence presented yet. I haven't seen any evidence.
So there's no defense on his part presented, correct?
I haven't seen evidence for the prosecution or the defense yet. So how could I even?
Well, I mean, you're
asking me to make a leap of faith based on having not seen any of the evidence that a juror would see or that a judge would have seen.
So you know that there was a gun. They found the gun. You know there were things on the casings. You know that there was an admission. You know that basically they got video of him climbing up there. You know that he was the one who pulled the trigger, right?
Okay, let's simplify this. Let Detroit said, what if he confesses? In chat, let Detroit said, what if he confesses? Okay, if he confesses, and he's guilty, and then, yeah, he deserves a death penalty in accordance to Utah.
No. Don't say in accordance to Utah. What do you think? He took a man's life. What should he get?
Well, I don't believe that the state should ever be allowed. I don't believe government should ever be allowed to kill anybody. I mean, that's like a hard line for me personally.
Okay, so then we lose every war.
And that's why I don't get to sit on any juries.
Yeah, but I mean, we would lose every war then. If you were the one that was in charge, we would go to war and never kill anybody.
No, that's the government.
What's the difference?
The difference, well, it's a fine line, but there is a difference there. I mean,
Well, walk me through it.
eye for an eye, Michelle. I don't know.
What's interesting to me is that if we go back to the 1980s person of you working at the radio show probably would have known exactly what to say as the punishment should be. But you nowadays, I'm worried. Yeah, I agree.
I was a very young child in 1980 is the issue, though. And I was very idealistic, and I would have said absolutely not. he should just simply spend the rest of his life in prison. He definitely shouldn't be killed.
Who should we make pay for all that? Who should pay for his meals? Should Charlie Kirk's wife pay for them?
Well, that's a good point too. Yeah, the society that helped create him gets to maintain him for the rest of his natural life. The society that helped create him and put him and make him into that thing gets to take some responsibility collectively for it.
So you're saying that all Americans as a social net should support murderers?
Well, if we're going to support people that couldn't live naturally and couldn't survive on their own, I'm not seeing much of a difference, just for the sake of argument.
You don't see the difference between somebody who is disabled and somebody who is a murderer?
A disabled person didn't choose to be disabled.
That's no.
And I don't believe
people
in general.
People
Right.
injure
You have a
them.
point there. There are plenty of disabled people
Yeah.
who didn't choose to be disabled.
Yeah. Speeding too fast, they purposely injure themselves, get workers' comp, and it goes downhill.
Yeah. Well, and also just not taking care of yourself at all, or not knowing how to take care of yourself, I guess, would be an argument too.
Oh, the food's so bad
Like
now. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's very easy to not be healthy now and end up disabled.
So my point to you is, do you want to know what I would do if I were an adjudicator?
Well, you're a lawyer, so you probably. I don't know. I want to know. I think it would be interesting to know.
As an adjudicator, considering we wouldn't be going through the fanfare of the traditional criminal procedure, but I would be deciding the case outside of the traditional norms of procedure, I would have to weigh and balance essentially what other parties influenced him. But ultimately, I would give him the death penalty, and I would not give him the pleasant option of dying by lethal injection. He would be required to die by a firing squad. And the reason why that is that Americans are soft and unable to tell me where they stand, kind of like what you're doing, because they haven't seen it and they need to see it. That's why when we have.
I saw what happened to Charlie.
No.
I saw.
You saw what happened to the victim, but you haven't seen enough of what happens to the murderers. You got to see that too. You got to see the full circle of life. That's what's crucial, because you feel the feels and you feel sad and everybody tells you to pray. I get it. I agree. But you got to see both sides. But let me ask you this. Have you ever been in a war zone and seen people dying in front of you?
Not in a war zone.
Okay.
I've seen people die.
All right. So do you think Americans have been warped because they've been protected from the realities of humans?
Yeah, especially with the internet having such an isolating impact on people feeling very free to say things that they would never say to your face, not in a million years.
Yeah, keyboard warriors without a gun to their head, right?
Yeah, people who would never ever dare say any of those things to your face if they saw you in person. That's a very common thing on there. It's a really warped people, especially young people who've grown up with it from the very beginning and don't know anything any different. It's had a very debilitating, warping impact that is probably unrecoverable, to be perfectly honest. The damage that it's done.
So my point to you with this is, because we have a bunch of people who don't actually know what happens, what the last breath sounds like, what it really looks like up close when the gore happens, when it tears apart the flesh.
And the smell.
Right.
The way the blood smells, the metallic smell.
So as a result, right, they're not understanding the reality of it. So they come at this as a literal keyboard warrior without a gun to their head. Charlie had a gun to his head. And he did every time he went out there to university and did this. A level of bravery.
Yeah, he had a bulletproof vest on.
I mean, how important is a bullet?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Your head, your neck, spots on your arms that equate to almost immediate bleed out. I mean, a bulletproof vest, you know what I mean?
No, I'm just saying he was aware that he was risking his life every time he went, and he wore a bulletproof vest. Is what I'm saying. I'm not.
The thing that I would say is this: it should be weighed what made this kid do that, and who were the actors that did it. But people need to see. People need to see.
Examined very thoroughly what factors went into making him into the monster that because it's the same. They're the same factors that all these people we see on social media celebrating it. All these and teachers and doctors and nurses, people all around the country, many of whom have lost their jobs already. Okay, that felt free enough to go on social media and smile and dance. And yes, we need to understand what it is that made these people into these monsters. We need to fully understand it. We need to comprehend it. We need to face it.
The beauty of this conversation, and the reason I did this video was to.
I didn't think this conversation was going to go like this. That's for sure.
But that's the beauty of it, That's the cool thing about it. Yeah. It is now 2 a.m. I got to wake up and work on the farm, but I ask everybody to be strong enough to have an opinion. And I know most people are right now struggling with listening to other people tell them what they think and what they should think about and who they should pray for and how they should pray for them. Have an opinion. Because if you don't, nobody will listen to you. That's the reality. Because if you're not vocal about what you think should happen, you don't have a vote. So, but anyways, good sir, this was excellent. Any closing thoughts?
Free speech isn't for the things that we all agree on. It's not necessary for those things. Free speech is for the things that cause you distress, cause you consideration, cause you to lose some sleep. Anyone who's read the Jefferson Bible, for instance, the 27-page abbreviated version of the New Testament that Thomas Jefferson put together, which are basically the words of Jesus extracted from the New Testament without any miracles. Okay, anyone who's read that comes away from it feeling very disturbed. At least Christians do come away from it feeling very disturbed.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for the people that celebrated this. I feel sorry for the person that did this horrible thing. And I feel sorry for our society and our culture for falling this far. And that's all I have to say, really.
Well, good, sir. You have a wonderful, wonderful night. Excellent words. And we'll rock and roll from there,
Have a good night.
Have a good night. Have a good night. All right. Good night. So with that said, and I think this is a really interesting video, we had a little debate and then we got way off debate. And we had debate. I think ultimately we have to kind of keep in mind is that certain people in society have to have no emotion. Some people have to have lots of emotion. We tend to prefer judges that have very little emotion, to look at the facts on both sides and not give preference. We tend to like butchers that are going to give us a break, but not the other person who did the wrong. And I think at the end of the day, what I would say, and I try to do some devil's advocate stuff there, which is playing the opposite side if I agree or disagree. I think at the very end of this conversation, It is to honor a person who was far braver than anybody in the chat, the comments, or even myself, because to show up at these schools, which are havens for creating unstable minds that are willing to commit atrocities, you would have to be, I guess Shadow's grabbing a drink, you would have to be very brave to go to the den of the problem. But, you know, if you're going to go fix something, you got to go to the source. So I get it. I get it. It does make you wonder, though, why it happened now and not before. You know what I mean? It's interesting. All right, I will catch you. Verity Hunt said, you're blaming schools. Yeah, of course. That's literally where people get ideas. That is the study of intellectual potential knowledge. It is the study of theories, the study of, in this case, the study of becoming a victim and keeping your victimhood. So it is an interesting thing. But anyways, I will catch you all a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful night. And this was a very, very good conversation, a very, very good debate. And we should be able to rock and roll from there. And please, please, please be kind to people. Please be nice to people. And please remember, people are struggling in their own way, in their own fashion. At the end of the day, a little bit of niceness can actually save a life. So I'll catch you all later. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much. And we'll go from there. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.